Hey, what is up, Better Call Saul fans? Kino here, and we're back with another reaction. Just watched the penultimate episode of Season 6, Waterworks. We only have one more episode to go after this. And for those of you who've been disappointed that I've not been hating on the episodes recently, you don't have to worry about that, because I hate this episode. It's not as bad as the earlier episodes of season 6 were, but man, did I feel a real lack of excitement in this episode. A real just not even like a slow burn, like a no burn kind of episode. So the big thing about this episode is it's the return of Kim. So we see what she has been up to. Or not, I guess we don't see what she's been up to. We see where she ended up. So she moved down to Florida. She works this really boring office job, at a sprinkler company. She's got a new boyfriend. I thought a husband at first, but he didn't live there, so it's probably just her boyfriend. Just a kind of boring, bland kind of guy, you know. She reminds me a little bit of, Beatrix Kiddo from Kill Bill, when she's undercut, like when she's left her like hitman life and now she's living kind of a boring life in Texas. Kind of seems like what Kim is doing here. She's kind of committed herself to having this very boring, you know, nondescript life. As a way of, I guess, maybe kind of escaping her guilt, but she gets a call from Gene. It's the call we saw 2 episodes ago, or maybe it was last episode. I can't remember. And she, feels he says like, why don't you turn, like they get into a little bit of a fight, and he's like, why don't you turn yourself in if you're so so much better than me. And then she does. She goes back to Albuquerque and like tells Cheryl, Howard's, I guess she was his wife. They were kind of separated, but she goes and tells Cheryl the truth. She submits the truth to the Albuquerque police. She cries at the end. And then we also get a scene of, during the Breaking Bad timeline, her getting divorced from Saul, and then she has a cameo with Jesse. He takes Emilio Koyama. It's Jesse's partner from the first episode of the show, the one that Walt gets arrested and Walt later kills. Spoilers if you haven't seen fucking Breaking Bad, but this is where. Okay, so in the episode Better Call Saul of Breaking Bad, again, the titling's so confusing now, Jesse takes Walt to Saul's office and is like, this dude got Emilio off like twice. So we're seeing their first kind of interaction before even the Walt stuff. And then they have a little scene together. It's raining. It was kind of a cliche scene, to be honest. It was like, I don't know, very like movie scripty, whereas it's raining heavy and they're like, is he any good? And then she's like, when I knew him, and then walks off like into just like dramatic. But then we go back to the Gene timeline. He's robbing that one cancer guy. We thought that guy was going to die, but he doesn't. He wakes up. And he doesn't catch Saul, but the taxi driver guy, Jeff, the cops pull up behind him and they're just like parked there eating or something, and then he thinks they're onto him and he's like drives away and crashes into a truck. And he gets arrested, and then Saul has to go get his mom to bail him out. And then she finds out he's Saul Goodman from the internet. She calls the cops. She realizes he's been conning her. And he has to run. And so that's where the episode ends, that he's been found out. My biggest problem with this episode is just all the characters are acting so fucking stupid. It's almost like a cliche of like your characters start to act really dumb towards the end of the show because you need a way for them to like you need to move them into the place where they get caught and stuff, and so they're acting just incredibly stupid. Now with Saul, with Gene, right? He's acting stupid in a number of ways. He's just getting too greedy, too like cocky. And we can attribute some of this to like character, right? We can say that like, oh, you know, he's crime and stuff was a way for him to kind of distract himself from, you know, being sad. And so therefore he's doing all this stuff, becoming a progressively worse and worse person, in order to not face the sadness and guilt he feels about his life, right? That's kind of one of the overall themes of the show. And so you could argue that, but it's just not satisfying because it's not well written. It's just like he's acting incredibly stupid. This is not the Saul that we knew from Breaking Bad. Now, again, you can say that like, oh, he's been away for so long that's why, you know, he's not used to this kind of stuff. He's not being careful. And arguably he was never careful. That's why he got involved with Walt in the first place. But to me, that's kind of like unsatisfying an answer. It's like he's acting stupid regardless of whatever like headcanon reasons you can justify it for. Just seeing him in the state is kind of pathetic, and it's like, I get what they're kind of doing here. They're like mirroring Walt in the penultimate episode of Breaking Bad when they take everything from him, right? In Granite State, you know, he calls his son, and the son's like, "Go kill yourself." And so we're left to see him in this kind of like pathetic, rotting state to hammer in the message that like, "Oh, you did the wrong thing." The difference is, though, well, I guess I shouldn't. Maybe next episode they'll also follow that same kind of format, which is he'll make his triumphant rise again in revenge. But the difference is that he has no one to go after. Everyone in his life is dead or wants nothing to do with him. The only missing piece of the puzzle was Kim. The only way the ending was going to be satisfying was if we somehow saw them like having an interaction. Not necessarily that they end up together and, you know, go off into the wind, but having a satisfying conclusion. This is not satisfying what we got. It's just like, oh yeah, she left him and this is it. It's like we skipped over the climax, you know? One episode into that, after Howard's death, she's like, oh, I'm leaving you. And then immediately just cut. And, like, we don't get to explore that in any kind of capacity. It's, like, all set up, no payoff. And I wonder how much of this is due to COVID, how much of this is due to Bob Odenkirk's heart attack. They maybe had to shift some things around. This does not feel like it was written this way. Like, I just can't look at Vince's writing and think that, like, oh, this is the climactic end to whatever everything they've been setting up. It feels very much like they made the best of the scenes that they were able to film. And it's disappointing. Like I mean, you know, people who love this show are gonna say like, just trust Vince. The last episode's not gonna be good. I guarantee it. I'm ready to get proven wrong if that's not the case, but the story has just not been set up in a way to deliver a kind of satisfying, punch. The end of Breaking Bad was set up so perfectly where all the dominoes could fall into place, with Walt to have his, climactic, resolutions to his storylines with Jesse, with Skyler, with the neo-Nazis. But Saul already had his stuff with Kim in this episode. Again, maybe they could do some more stuff with it, but it just doesn't seem like they're in a place to come back together without it being incredibly contrived, right? She came back to Albuquerque. She's on her way back to the airport to leave, to go back to Florida, go back to her life. I don't know. Maybe they could write it off. He's so far away. How is he going to get back together and not have it been like she was just waiting here the whole time for you? I know that probably didn't sound like it made any sense. I'm just saying that, like, the only satisfying thing I could really expect from the finale is a big Saul, Kim kind of moment, and it just does not seem like it's set up to deliver that. We get a teaser that looks like he might be back in Albuquerque. His car is like crashed in the desert, it looks like, and he's calling the vacuum cleaner repair guy. I wonder how they'll do that because the actor who played the vacuum cleaner guy is dead. But yeah, I don't see how the story could pay off in a meaningful way. Mike is dead in this timeline. There's nothing for them to have a conversation about. Chuck's dead. There's no kind of confrontation that can happen there. There's no one in his life. Now, I could see the ending maybe being him dying, like, alone. Even though there's no one out to, like, kill him. I could see him maybe getting arrested and being like, you know, the last kind of... People are joking that, like, the last scene is going to be like, I fought the law and the law won, you know, that song. I could see him maybe getting arrested and the final kind of scene is him, you know, going to jail for all of his crimes. But that just doesn't seem like it'll be satisfying to me. Like, even people joke that, like, oh, Kim would, like, defend him in that final scene, right? She's not a lawyer anymore. She can't just go and get her license back again. She resigned. I don't know. Maybe she can. I don't know how the bar works, but the thing that I'm probably explaining very badly is that, like, where all the characters are set up right now, it doesn't lend itself to them easily coming back together. Although I guess you could argue that Walter was in another state too in the penultimate episode of Breaking Bad. He came back and it tied all together, but yeah, and I don't know. Just this episode is also titled Waterworks, and it wasn't sad at all. Like, Kim's big thing about, like, confessing what she did to Howard, I don't know. It just... We didn't get enough time with her dealing with the ramifications of that. Like, we get a whole half a season of her dedicated to, like, this plan to bring him down, and we immediately jump ahead after his death to, like... We get no time for her to, like, process and deal with it and, like, understand her grieving and have it contribute to her character. It feels like her character is just a completely different person than the girl we saw throughout all of this last season. There's no payoff to her character in the sense that, like, you know, she was becoming a worse and worse person alongside Saul, and it just felt like she made a complete 360. It doesn't feel like she made a meaningful decision to, like, reverse who she was and become a better person. It just felt like, oh, next scene, like, yeah, I'm a good person now, so I'm not going to be with you anymore. You get it? They're not giving her enough screen time to, like, actually justify this change in her character and make it feel meaningful and impactful. It just happened off screen. Which, again, is why I say that it feels to me like these scenes were just kind of hastily written to deal with, like, COVID realities and, like, Bob Odenkirk's schedule after his heart attack. You know, it's... I imagine that probably messed up the timing of when all the actors could be on set and stuff, but... yeah, I just think they squandered so much of this season on that goddamn stupid cartel storyline that had no payoff either. When we could have been seeing, like, Saul becoming a worse and worse person progressively through, you know, him being in his office, dealing with clients, Kim progressively getting more and more, disgusted by his actions. And then when she finally leaves him, then it could be like, you know, no, what have I done kind of situation. Instead of, she led him into that goddamn Howard stuff. He didn't want to do it. You guys remember that in the season, like, she had the idea to humiliate Howard. And yet the show is painting it like it's, like, all Jimmy's fault. I'm not saying he's a complete innocent. He's not, but that's what I'm saying. The payoff to this storyline is something that didn't even happen. all the horrible stuff that Jimmy done was more like around the Chuck stuff. He drove his brother to suicide. That doesn't get paid off in any way, but this, like, Kim's, like, Howard's storyline does. Even though Kim was the one to push him to it, it's like whoever wrote, like, the setup to this is a completely different writer than the one who wrote the payoff. It's like they have two different ideas of the trajectory of where these characters were going. And I don't know, maybe that's how it was. Maybe Vince is writing part of these, maybe Peter's writing part of these, and they're just not communicating well, and being in the same place as where these characters should be. But it's just a misalignment. It's just a misfire this whole season. And, that's common. Endings are hard, endings are really hard for a series, but, I don't have high hopes for, Saul's Gone, the last episode. I think it'll have some fan servicey kind of moments where it's like, hey, remember this from Breaking Bad? But ultimately it won't be like a satisfying emotional payoff to all the setup that we've been getting, this whole show. It'll be more like weird, out of place flashbacks that I don't think really contribute to the narrative. But that's just my prediction. Who knows? Maybe this one episode will be so good it'll make everything else make sense. But, yeah, for now, that's my thoughts. I apologize if it was a little bit incoherent. I try to keep my thoughts on pace, but if you guys watch these videos, my mind goes in a million directions at once, and I'm usually better once I, like, write it out and, like, kind of focus my thoughts into, like, a single idea. But, that's what these videos are. They're just my honest reaction immediately after watching the show. So, thank you guys for watching. We will, of course, check out the next episode, the final episode of the show next week. And we'll have more reactions after that. I plan on continuing doing these for any interesting show that I watch. So, you'll have more of these coming down the line. So, talk to you then, and have a good night.